The Ring of Dain Thar Duin. Book 4. Breaking stone and rushing water, singing bird and hunting otter. Chaos does love the race of man, who alone make plans and bold stratagems only to discard at the first sign of resistance. And here she falls upon them, sending her child panic, that men forget who they are and act as though a beast, thinking only of the moment as the future falls into a haze, surrendering themselves to be ruled by their bodies, not their minds or souls. And when men live in this state of bestial need, they sow ruin for themselves and for their neighbors, the men who they had cared for not long ago, as all becomes worthless in the face of the needs of the body, a man's body alone. Dark were those days, days when death and blood became all that men know, and all which they desire, and darkness unchanging goes on until men can look up at the sky and remember the peace of Ceallach, and the temperament which it brought to the Iolish blood was abandoned before her. And in such a state of forgetfulness lies her kingdom, and in it the world is broken, shaped, and changed. But some men, even when brought to her court, remember the plan of Ceallach. Such was the field after the final battle of the Hawk. Such was the flight of those great chiefs, Ceallach the warrior, the tricking Otter, the songbird Sparrow, the distraught Aethelwald with the ring of Ceallach on his hand, and with every step further from the reach of the hunter, whose host had broken apart into its many tela and warred with each other, for their hearts held shame for their crimes. Each thought those beside him villains for hiding it, cursing himself for his fellowship in such a band. So men left all order, ashamed, abandoning their tela and trusting only close family, and guarding their farms against all others, until all the island fell to disrepair, and lived as the wee Agla did before the great crime. Eoland was laid lower than before Ceallach began his conquests. Only the Drocht Ballon and wee Agla still obeyed their telachs, though they fought themselves where they could. The wounded Uncoltabar retreated, and the Londar refused to pay all tribute, though since the death of the Hawk King they chose a telach, but would not listen to him. A hard time for all men came. The four rested far from the place of battle. Weary and mournful were they who had never before fled the field. To all men defeat is hateful, but to the Iolish it is shameful also. Ceallach stood among them, having many times drunk from this bitter goblet. Silent was he, immovable grey warden, his weather-worn face watched over them as they wept. None but he knew of the doom he had lain on those outside the blood of Ceallach who carried the ring. Looking upon the boy he now guarded, the ring set on his hand, he did regret those words, and mourned silently for the boy's fate. Ceallach swore in his heart to protect him as long as his body had strength. Twice was he witness to the death of the High Ceallach. Twice their child placed in his care. Aethelwald would not be lost as Alulian was. A second oath he placed upon his heart then. The shadows lengthened, and he roused them from their stupor. The three captains debated, eager to guard their charge, but uncertain. They could not call on allies, though these they had, for fear that the great host would descend upon them to end the line of Etheldor, to finish that last great crime, or bring that darkness flying to them. The Sparrow urged caution, to make no choice in haste. The Otter was for quiet banditry, that he might guard Aethelwald by his skill, and take slow revenge on their enemies. But Ceallach told them to hide in the mountains of the west, the Isle Celrose, where the men were wild and untamed, for any victory would bring retribution. The Otter at the suggestion agreed, for they were his people, and the Sparrow thought well of hiding, but desired to do it far from people. Summer died, as did many throughout the land. And where before the violence called the Tella to arms against each other, the breaking of the island turned families even against their Tella, raiding neighbors in barbarous violence. Truly it was kind that the good King Ceallach died before witnessing such pain, for he would weep to see the fire sweeping the island. The band of four crept to the Isle Kelrose to hide, finding a deep dell between the mountains, and there discovered a home twice hidden, a concealed cave with but a slender opening and screened by many trees, its mouth home to a mighty stream which spewed from the opening with such speed that men could not conquer its force. Little use would this cave have been but for the skill of the otter, swimming them against the current and to a rock ledge. There they settled, water provided by the stream and food by the dell, the cave large enough for each of them. Hidden, they listened to the mood of the isle. It was only when they had lived there a month that they discovered a hall which in before times had belonged to the Unbolam, but which now was the court of an Unsalal warlord. Learning of it, the captains grew afraid and again held council. Ceallach spoke of their closeness. Hunted, hunted evermore. Now do I know the weariness of the hind, though more familiar I am with the work of the hunter, pursuing quarry without trail. Novelty has come too late in the life of this old warrior. Cunning is our hiding, well spotted by the otter. His skill of mind and body alone has allowed our resting. But our foe has come too close. If they discover us, we shall surely be slain. For though the skill of our arms is mighty, and we slay 100 men, they will have more to bring, or else starve us in the cave, free to drink water but without food. Our good fortune spent, let us leave before that day, and by cover of darkness make our way to safer homes. To tarry a day longer is to place the life of Aethelwald at the mercy of time. I cannot break the oath which I made by taking you to my kin, and should we take him to the Uncotabar, our foes would descend on that people to give final completion to their violence. Better it is to go north to the lands of the Ungol, a long, struggling people who, though they join the host of our foes, have little fire in them for further slaughter, and so they would not note our coming. Thus do I counsel. Yet scarcely had he finished, that the Sparrow began his soothing flattery to calm the great warrior, seeing their future differently. I am heartened to know that in my desperate task, that which I have taken not lightly in memory of a good man, I am not alone in the gift of speaking. You have caught me off my guard, that one so renowned as a warrior, the sword of Ceallach king, should be well reasoned. I have for too long let the otter inform me of the nature of warriors, and as consequence I am shocked when one of your kind can carry their thought. Their wisdom to me is the well bucket drawn up with vigor and strength, but when one seeks to drink from it he finds it empty, the water drained away by holes. Well do I understand that which you fear. It weighs heavy on my mind also, but rather than flee we should stay fast. They have built this hall far from the foothills, that their warriors might force tribute from the people nearby. They do not seek us, for they have no cause to think us living. So instead let us become their friends. If they find us living here, then we shall be slain. In the open we shall be defenseless. If battle be fated, far better to give it here, where they would struggle against the quick current, and with the otter set against them, he who has fought many great men from the safety of the river. We are well hidden, this deep dell buried, so that only by luck can it be found, and still harder to find is our home. It is by daring alone that one might find the cave behind the stream. Better it is to stay here until we have learned the manner of our foe. I would not call you to do this task when you would rather fly, yet better for you to stay here and guard your ward. I am willing to go to them and sing in the guise of a humble beggar, gaining their friendship by my songs. There I shall spy their designs and keep their eye from this place, perhaps even earning coin and food for us there. Thus do I counsel. To the Otter now fell the vote, whether to fly or stand. He spoke in his straight way. So we are caught in that most common trap. Stay or leave. To stay we would risk our future. To fly would threaten us this hour. Worse still is that we are great chiefs charged with guarding a prince 12 years of age. Were we alone, then there would be no difficulty, as each of us could on our own make do. But the boy comes before any other. His needs are all we may consider, and in such consideration it is clear that we must remain here. It is too dangerous for us to move to the north. We shall surely be spotted by ravenous bands opposing. In waiting, we might win their friendship with guile and be safe, or else if attacked, we can win here, for the warband cannot be endless. Let them barricade us in this cave. Defeat shall be all they know. For we are the 3 mightiest captains in an age, and he that sets foot in my stream shall know death by my hand. None but the terrible hunter could fell any of us, and he has no cause to search for us here. Thus do I counsel. Ceallach was upset with their reasoning, but obeyed the vote of the captains, and went to prepare stakes that the Otter might place beneath the water to defend their home. They settled there. The Otter found food for them. Ceallach prowled the dell, silent watchman, as the Sparrow would leave and sing for the men in the warband. They found a second, better concealed entrance upon a high rock shelf, where they could watch the dell entire. The Sparrow gained entrance to that hall of the Ceallach warband, who named themselves the Crows as they scavenged the land for their need, through craft of trickery, not coming to them in hope of friendship, but rather to those people oppressed beneath their feet. He went to the home of those suffering under their heel, and sang to them the lay of Math, wise man who sired him that sired the lord of the island, a tale worthy of the true song which the Sparrow sung, taught to him by a Lulian. Terrible was the knowledge of Math, wisest of the wise men, who could at mere desire turn the trees to animals, or engender the flowers even in winter. All men feared him lest he destroy their lives with but a word. But Math was good and kind, aiding not only his people, the wee Lide Saul, but also each Tella of Eoland, as he walked through Eoland barefoot, settling the Iolish, who praised his wisdom but feared his power, using his knowledge not to violence, but the building of Eoland. It was Math who taught the Iolish to yoke the bull and plough the fields, to thatch their roofs and dig wells. Math was alone. Without companionship he walked the land, reaching the height of knowledge which men can reach to, but desiring still more, sought by marriage to discover hidden knowledge. But as he searched the land he could not find a wife among the Iolish who held knowledge he did not. So he went beyond them, deciding that one of the Baith would be his wife. He went to the great barrow of Ceallach Eol, who raised the island from the sea and gave it to his children, the peak of the father of the Isle Malach, and there Math by his art began to sing, the skill and subtlety of mankind on his tongue, till at last our voice replying unseen sang back in perfect harmony, but far richer in voice, sweet as the nightingale, melodic as the stream, deep as thunder in the mountains, awesome as only truth is awesome, and perfect as nothing mortal is perfect. He sang against this voice, singing of the comfort of the fire, the joys of the mead bench, of farms, fields, and thatch, and these he used as a shield and sword to defeat this voice. But that voice was not unarmed, and had desire for deep places far from fire and the sound of men, luring him upon the crags and rocks of the mountain. It took his voice far from the open sky into wet caves beneath the mountain, to caverns and dim halls where dark things lay, to the world beneath this one, and there to keep him. their battle rolling, becoming ever more rich as the voice which mimicked now led him, and he found himself drowning in its smoothness, wave after wave suffocating his voice as he now sang after the voice. But he was no mere man, having in him knowledge, and chaining himself to the sun and moon that they would sustain him, desperate grew his song, but still fierce. So though he sang after the powerful voice, he found strength in himself to make himself discordant to it, and thus broke free, returning with might to conquer it, till at last his voice ruled. It seemed to him that the discarded rocks of the mountain had in them a woman's face, and that it was her whom he had been contending with. At the end of their song she ceased to be of the stone, and walked as lithe flesh, her height greater than any man, her skin at first as the mountain stone behind her, but changed as she strode to him, until she was spring, air, and light, and she yielded to him, not from his power or skill, but curiosity, for she was of the Baith, and should she desire she would break him upon the rocks, or seal him away beneath the waters, or else be victorious in their battle of song. For the Baith bow before their own only, and no man may master them that dwell in the dim below. So Math wed a Baith witch, the only mortal man to do so, and in no tale is her true name spoken, but the Iolish know her to be Melbebdelalia, which is the winter rose, for she is more terrible and more beautiful than the harsh snows, and by her tutelage his power became awesome. Together they had a son, Mathred, the greatest warrior known to the Iolish, and in blissful union they did raise him to be strong and just, powerful as the seasons, yet ingenious as man, understanding of his blood. But while time would not touch her, he aged, until he stood low, for he remained a mortal man despite his knowledge, and the time came for his passing. But he was not sorrowful in death, for he saw his son, strong and true, made the Ceallach of the wee Lide Saul. As all Aethelwald wept for the loss of his goodness, yet Melbebdelalia refused his burial in lands well known, and took his body where no man knows. And though he deserved a barrow as large as Malach's for his knowledge, the great Math was buried as no man ever was, no hill large enough save the great hill of Hala. Well is it known that the Baith build barrows more beautiful than man, for they taught the Iolish the proper burial, where before they placed their dead on pyres, when Aethelwald was raised from the sea. The Sparrow sang true song, the lay of Math, well into the night. The spirits of those who were robbed of their food by the Unsalal crows lifted. The next day they began their work in cheer, and sang with the Sparrow the traditional songs of the Iolish. He stayed with them for a time, singing to them and working in their fields. Thus he learned the nature of the war band. They were led by Noreen, who came with warriors loyal to return the Unsalal to his father the Ceallach. For in the breaking the Unsalal were torn apart worse than others, as the father of Noreen, Brenacht, was cruel, and the warriors hated him for leading them to Arel Salam, paying tribute no longer. Noreen came beneath the Isle Kelrose with 100 men, his champion famed for wanton violence of men, whose mouth was always agape with tongue lolling freely as a dog contented, and named Prenaloch. His mind was slow and warped, but violence need not a brilliant mind to achieve its ends, merely the desire to see it done. Prenaloch had this will, lusting after violence as after a woman. Where men refused, Noreen gave the crows a free hand. His raiders knew no temperance in their violence. Knowing their number and kind, the Sparrow made his skill known to the people about, singing to remind those who lived in dark days of Malach's peace, until at night they came from miles to hear his voice. They gathered in an airy grove. Fires bathed them in warm light as the sparrow sung each night from a tree stump. Word of the strange wise man came to Noreen, and he with his warband came to the gathering. At the sign of their approach, men fled, fearing violence, but the crows chased after them, and those they found were beaten and dragged before the sparrow, who moved not at their coming. Noreen spoke not as he sat before the sparrow, waiting. His warriors gathered about him with the listeners on their knees held hostage. Ceallach moved beside the singer, his sword drawn in his eager hand. His tongue lapped the air as he waited the command of Noreen. The sparrow sat still, unmoving. Long they faced each other in silence, as though warriors testing the reach of their foe. But the addled mind of Noreen could not outlast the serene sparrow, and Noreen spoke with honeyed falseness. Why, I hope that your song has not ended this night, for I had heard that you begin only in twilight, when sun and moon are married once more, where dreams walk the sweet earth of Eoland. Tell me, why did you begin so early this day? For what other reason is there that my people would leave so early? Have they lost their love for you so quickly, singer? I am not so fickle as those who till earth and breed swine. Win me, and you will keep me. Fail, and you will have no want or desire for all time after. I am a good man and a loyal son, for when the island shattered I stood beside my father where my brothers abandoned him. A man without Ceallach is a man without Tella, and forfeits his manhood. A life of outlawry awaits. I have not abandoned my people, and have labored to protect them from falling into nothingness. Sing for me now that I know your friendship, and that these swineherds might enjoy your music and its sweetness, and go to sleep, not a fouler taste. Sing for me the songs you give them, that I know their nature. For should a man come into my Tella and lead men astray, then both thieving shepherd and foolish sheep must die to save the flock. Sing, bird, and let me hear how sweet you are. The sparrow was unnerved by this last name, fearing that he was known to him. His friendship with the dead king of Uncoltabar would doom him, or else the battle at the ford remembered. But as he sat before Noreen and his crows with swords drawn and hostages taken, the sparrow readied himself. He had desired their coming, and prepared for the moment, for this was his trap. He began singing a song not of warriors or kings, but of a tree, simple in its life and beautiful in its growth. Time tended it with love, and its boughs filled with good beasts, and laden heavily with fruit. Its green leaves, gentle in the wind, gave shade to all in need of rest. Peace was its gift to the world. Storms mighty it weathered, rain and lightning shook it, but always it stood and gave freely those same gifts. For ages it stood happily and strong, until men of iron came and stripped it of its branches, sawed its trunk, and slew it, burning the corpse in fire. Thus the sparrow sung as Noreen laughed and revelled, dancing violently among the hostages, his men cheering him, their blades pressed still against the captives. When the sparrow ended his song, Noreen ceased his dancing, breathless, and looked upon him appraisingly, and spoke. This is a long life that I have lived. Though I have seen but 25 summers, I feel weary. Even as I wake from sleeping, I feel an exhaustion in my very bones. The waking world is a weight that grinds me down. 10 years passed from my youth, so long from when I became my father's favorite, and that great army of the West. How strange was that time when I was a child, when I knew not the joy of blood spilt in rash action. Wasted was my time chasing rabbits and toads, or listening to stories by the fire. My cunning should have pursued violence. Then would I have been prepared for that which I do now. Perhaps I died in one of those battles, and was replaced with this husk. I do not doubt it. I have fought in many, the victories more horrible than defeat. Under those fiery walls of Salam my men followed me to glorious victory, aided by the greatest host and my close friend. There we choked in the ashes and saw the burning corpses of the children trapped in the walls, and we knew that we were revenged. But for what I still do not know. It was there the crows were born, each of us great warriors of might, destined for conquest. Blood is all that gives me joy, to watch a man lose his life, to rend his soul from his bones and leave it to wander lonely through our lands for all time. There is nothing left to us, we whose swords have slaughtered children. Yet your songs did give me joy, a break in the clouds, the rains abated. It seemed that those years long past were before me, before the host battled the tyrant and I was still a boy. Live, bard. I would find no happiness in your pain. Yet sing to me frequently that I can live too, that I might forget that which I carry. No harm shall ever come to you by the crows, but should your singing leave me unsatisfied, these hostages will be slain and unburied, food for the carrion birds. Until that time they will be unmolested, enjoying our guard. Go, man, in peace, but return to me soon. He turned away, leaving the clearing without further violence. His men followed after, disappointed. Ceallach sheathed his sword angrily and hid his lolling tongue. The hostages rejoiced at Noreen's mercy and praised the skill of the Sparrow. They pledged to him their possessions and placed their families at his service for all time. All things he refused, for he could not take from those who had so little, and returned by cover of darkness to the cave where Ceallach, the Otter, and Aethelwald stayed. The Otter waited for him at the stream with his staff ready, and swam him to the ledge inside. The Sparrow told them of his victory, that they would now be safe from the warbands. The captains turned their thoughts to the teaching of their ward, for they were skilled men and would make Aethelwald the best among them. The morning after his return, the Sparrow took him beneath a great oak which grew in the dell and spoke. You are all that remains of a happy time, when you and your brothers were beloved in all good lands. That time has ended in a terrible fury, in wreck and ruin, and may not come again. Should you want their return, you will earn it with cleverness, for the path to the most sweet of prizes will take cunning. The people of Iolland bowed entire to Ceallach, the true king of our people alone. For we are a fickle people, and worse, we are mistrustful, that any who come from beyond our tella are quickly named liars and schemers. That is your enemy. That is the foe which Ceallach conquered, and it has only grown stronger since when he ruled. We have walked far in coming here. Reflect upon what you have seen. Since the raising of the island, the Iolish have held themselves to their tella and fought against others. Now they fear the tella and trust only their closest kin. Now I fear the hate will run deeper, a poisoned stream, until men hate even their kin and bring their iron against them. Yet I have lived with their mistrust 3 weeks, enjoying hospitality only from my voice. The people who live beyond this dell refused their Ceallach, for which they were set upon by unhinged beasts. This is our land, your birthright. We must heal it. War and battle will be your office, for you shall need to wrestle these people from those who would rule by blood and fear. 2 great warriors shall train you how to hold arms and win war, but you must remain a man through all that is to come and remember your wisdom. I will teach you this, but I must also keep the favor of the dangerous men, and will stay many nights away. Your lessons will come but rarely, yet you must hold my wisdom ever in your mind, lest you become a mindless beast, a fate beneath your blood. I shall teach you here, beneath this mighty oak tree, and when you see me under its ancient branches, I desire that you come with haste, dropping other lessons and chores to hear me, for our time will forever be short. So the Sparrow advised. He then began to tell Aethelwald of his life, and how he came to hold his power. He told the story of the strange child who lived among the barrows, how eager she was to hear him sing, and the eternal majesty of power which she showed him. The power that lives in words he taught, and their use toward just ends. His ward learned eagerly, for he had not been a warrior such as his brothers were, and the Sparrow had much to teach of the hearts of men and its rulers. For language is the master of man, in their common lives and private thoughts. The Otter came next in good cheer to Aethelwald, and led him to the waters of the stream which gushed from the cave. The Otter waded to the middle of the fast water, and there spoke to his ward. The bright bird sings sweetly, it's true. Many have rested beside the fire at the sounds of his singing, but more important is that wisdom he will teach you, which can bind men to you. To keep a man's loyalty in all times is a challenge. Good men have failed. So listen well beneath that tree, that later days your path be made easier. That good ring of your fathers shall aid you. I cannot teach you skill in language. I know far too little of it to be of use. But I can teach how to lead men. For these 5 years past I have led the war bands of your people and have conquered. In the years before that time I did harass your people, ever over my ford. Victory was ever mine when I desired it. If your good father sent too many warriors, I knew to flee, for the tide was against me. This can I teach you, that you will never be caught unaware. Each battle you wage will be yours. You will not know defeat. A skilled king does not waste lives in a battle he cannot win, and you must become a skilled king. Eoland is haunted by the spirit of Salam, by the breaking. This ghost has driven them to abandon their Ceallachs. A king that would conquer this anger must guide men to better paths, and he must not ever permit their blood to fall recklessly, or else they you command are betrayed. Come, and I will teach you the proper art of a Ceallach. In the mornings Aethelwald was made to swim against the strong stream to accustom himself to labor, and when he wearily sat by the soft banks afterwards, the Otter spoke of his many battles and the many wars of the Iolish, from the raising of the island to the war of Salam and the great defeat of the Hawk King. Of men and their courage he taught, how a shield wall is to stand, of proper diet and exercise, of weather and how to read the earth. This he taught with fury, desperate that Aethelwald understand the way of war, for it was to be his life. Aethelwald learned from his 2 masters, but Ceallach would not teach him mastery of arms, watching him learning silently, or else laying in the cave unmoving. Months passed in such manner. With the Sparrow away from the dell often, the boy's learning fell to the Otter alone, who grew irate that the sword of Ceallach was silent, and berated him, demanding that the boy be taught from his hand. But it was not until Aethelwald came to him and asked for his knowledge that he broke his silence. You are thrice doomed to death, child. The first, laid against you when you took the first breath of this world's stale air. The second, prescribed to you when you were given your name by a dead man with many foes still living. For the foeman's guilt is terrible, having done many things which curdle the blood, and at the sight of you they will come with axes, hoping by your death to gain some peace for their troubled souls. The third doom you carry, I gave you before I knew your face, that which marked your father High Ceallach, the ring of Ceallach, carries upon it the curse of Ceallach, that any man that holds it outside the blood of Ceallach is to die, their designs to fail. You are doomed to die by my curse, doomed to fail as fate chose for you to wear the cursed gold while the daughter is missing from the waking world. Only his child who is lost may wear it without bringing death. Until it rests there, it shall always be the object of envy. I have killed you, boy. Certain am I that my doom shall fall upon you before others. Would you still have me as a teacher? There is one who hunts you, desiring the ring above all things, above even the fellowship of man. He was one of the black band which attacked the hill of Hala and laid our people to ruin. Why he seeks the ring of kings I know not, but his strength is terrible. I have battled him once, and but for the Sparrow I would have perished. Never have I seen such skill. Should we again do battle, he would slay me in a moment, as his lust drives him beyond any man's skill. It was he who won the battle and brought ruin to your brothers, father, and Ceallach. He is the actor of my doom, and he hunts you. You need no teacher who cannot teach you victory against this foe. Aethelwald would not be dismissed, but neither did he demand obedience. For though a child, he was not childish. Pain had driven that from him. Instead, he begged to be taught by that mighty hand. Each of my teachers has told me that I am to be king. I know little of that duty. My memories full of feasts and singing, but of leadership, little. I know nothing of that life, yet they have told me I can do no other. I will not weep if it is to be my fate. This mantle is no more a burden than that of another man. A king I shall be, but only a good king. Large do the figures of my family loom before me, with them the skill of the Otter and Sparrow who made the Uncoltabar take such a place of honor. Forever I feel I will hold myself against their image and weep at the comparison. The great warrior Ceallach, who sat beside the Ceallach of all peoples in that golden time of calm, your story was told to me when you walked the wilderness in unknown pursuit. And of all the heroes of time I hold you higher. They were men, but you were legend. I am to learn from both the Otter and Sparrow, men of renown and skill in combat, but neither can teach my safety. The Otter was victorious in duels, but only when he battled in waters. Upon land he is graceless. He has won many battles with cunning, not might, staying behind the shield wall to command. He was given his band by a Ceallach where I must earn mine. He holds many victories where I have none. Your youth was spent in violence. Many duels have you won. If I am marked to die by a curse long since made, then I am glad that it was you who doomed me, and not a hateful man. If the hunter is your doom made flesh, then he is coming for me even in this hour, and if he finds me I will have no hope for survival. If you regret this fate in any part, this terrible doom you have leveled against a child, teach me strength in arms, that I might forestall my death and unite the Iolish. I will not put off this labor. Any task which you have set to me shall be done. Please, warrior, forgive all shame and teach me victory. Ceallach listened, and as Aethelwald spoke he wept slow tears, rising at the end to embrace the boy, holding him tightly yet with tenderness. Then silently he hung the baldric from his shoulder, his scabbard again at his side, and went out to the dell. From that time he taught Aethelwald proper skill in arms and bodily might. So in the mornings he learned from Ceallach, and in the evenings from the Otter. When he was not with them, he walked the forest to discover the workings of nature. Rarely was the Sparrow with them, for he was with Noreen, or those people harmed by the crows. By his singing he hoped to bring him to temperance and love, but while the tyrant listened to the songs, his madness did not relax itself. Yet the Sparrow was not in defeat entire, for though Noreen watched wildly from his mead bench, drink spilling over those who sat near him, and maniac laughter on his lips while in the throes of terrible pleasure, as only dimly returned memories to his soul. His men were the same only with him. When he was gone with his blood-dog Ceallach, then the Sparrow would return to the crows their souls. They praised him, and numbered him as one of their own. Such was their love for him. When Noreen commanded his men to discover where the Sparrow went, they left the hall and waited in the woods near, hidden, that it seemed they hunted after him. They cared not where he would go, only that he would return. Before they left for battle, they would call upon him and ask his blessings, and in victory they gave their mead to him and cheered as he sang. The crows fought often, for that was the nature of the isle after the war of breaking, as Ireland began her time of humiliation. Bands of mead-earning warriors often came to take the lands held by the crows, or else the crows went to seize more lands in the name of the Ceallach. So it was in all places. Of the Tella, only the Drocht Ballon did not shatter, though many bloody battles they fought against their neighbours, and exhaustion came over them. It was in this time when the first of the ship people came to the island, the Daona. Long sundered kin of the Iolish they were, speaking a similar tongue that the two might understand the other, and looking so near that one might struggle to tell which belonged to what land, except that the Daona had a look of savagery to them. Their ships were swift and fierce, dark their helms and fearsome beasts on their shields, great weapons in their hands. They were axemen, war men, iron men, large in size and terrible in their temper. They did not believe in the good God, worshipping instead savage demons of dark and fire. Long is the voyage to Daona, a cold place, that any Iolish in his cog would sink in the harsh seas long before sight of land. But the long, thin ships of Daona sail light as foam on the breakers. Their ships conquer all waters, sitting so shallow that they can sail any moving water, sea or creek. They came first in small numbers, only a ship at a time, called to the island by struggling kings to serve as paid fighting men. So eager did they prove in their violence that they were often seen battling on the soft grass of Eoland, even against other Daona. The Daona on the field, weary Iolish without them were defeated, and men grew to fear them. The Daona were praised by those who called them, and when battle was won they shared mead benches, the love of the Iolish warriors for mead matched by these terrible new men. In this manner 2 years did pass, the Daona now common among the ranks of the Iolish war bands. In their style the Iolish now did paint their arms, not in the terrible colours of the shipmen, but rather in the colours of their own Tella, though they warred with them still. The Iolish fought for everything their neighbour might possess, their wants unsated. A man need only see a crop growing better than his, a flock with more wool, or a maid more handsome than his wife, to rouse his fellows to a band and murder until he held that which he desired. By what right does a man hold his own possession when he rejects the law of his fellows and knows not the law of God? 2 years under teaching is good for all men, and the skill of the Otter, the Sparrow, and Ceallach brought their ward to manhood. Though he had seen but 14 summers, Aethelwald was in knowledge and temperament no longer a child. In strength of arms had a boy's weakness, but was sure-footed and cunning that it mattered not. He minded carefully the lands about him, and knew where to go to battle at any moment, and how to use all the earth to his advantage. The wild seemed not wild to him. Its fruits were his to pluck, its secrets laid bare before his eyes. He was good-hearted and tender with all living things, but when battle was upon him he grew fierce and clever that none might outthink him. Buried deep within him was his shrewdness, that in appearance he seemed just a boy, but ever his gaze fixed upon matters of importance. Proud were they who taught him, seeing their virtues carried to the highest place in their ward. Thus was the character of a good Ceallach placed in Aethelwald, last child of the Hawk, bearer of the ring of Dain Thar Duin. In the spring, 2 years removed from the War of Breaking, the Sparrow and Otter together came to the hall of Noreen and his crows, in hopes that they might gain protection for all their company in time. They were welcomed warmly there, so high their esteem for the Sparrow they cared not that he brought a stranger to their midst. Fate seemed to weave their arrival, for there was to be a feast that day. A great guest would come to stay with Noreen. At their coming to the small, dirty den of the carrion birds, the chief came to them, his guard Ceallach by his side, and with eyes eager and wild began commanding them. Truly does fortune love me. She will not lead me awry, and so long as I have desires she will fulfill them. For today there is to be a feast of size so large it will defeat all other gatherings of men, save only that gathering on the cursed hill. Tonight shall be merrier, for when I feared my hall would be without laughter, you came to lift all spirits. I have sent my men to go into my lands and rouse my people, bringing them here to feast with me as I have never had them here before. It is good, too, that you have brought also a companion to observe my glory. I hold it to be a good omen of your friendship. Indeed, it seems that I am to be given more than a good man might dare desire. My stewardship of my people so virtuous that the reward more awesome than a mere feast. Your coming on such a day is proof that I should no longer content myself with such a meager place. For you are at my hall and greater than all the singers in my father's hall. Long have I waited to become Ceallach of the Unsalal, yet never would I take the place of my father, who is a good Ceallach. But though my many brothers and lesser cousins have done nothing to safeguard his power or the safety of our people, he has not yet named me Ceallach beside him. Tonight I shall do that, and the people who I have guarded in these 2 years shall declare me to be Ceallach of the Unsalal Tella, greatest of Eoland, and I shall take the seat of the high Ceallach which was destined to fall to my blood when it was stolen by the ill ruler, the fool Malach. Long shall be my reign. As he spoke, Ceallach grew more excited, as a dog fawning over its master, his tongue lapping at the air, his eyes eager, and when he proclaimed his design, the dog howled with pleasure and sang praises. The silence of the Otter and Sparrow was not noted, only the ravings of his servant, and he left there in good spirits. When they had passed, the Sparrow took his place beside the fire. Though the hall had only servants, he began to sing to prepare himself, as singers often do before performing, while the Otter warmed himself by the fire, and under the protection of the singing he began to speak. Madness. A terrible madness has consumed the Iolish. This petty king will not live out the year. His folly will stain the earth in blood. That these times are to be ours are signs of an angry God. If the Ceallach of the Unsalal is strong, he will not allow this beast to be his heir, no matter past promises. And if he is weak, then the worse for these poor people. They will never know peace, as bands of their brothers or others will always press upon their lands. The age of blood has come, and will not end in our time. Noreen's protection has been valuable these last 2 years, but it cannot last much longer. We must prepare for that time when we will fly from this dell, as his little Tella will not win against whatever force comes now, be they Unsalal, Iolish, or Daona. When we leave here tonight, we must tell the old sword to prepare our sudden flight. The sparrow changed his song to one more solemn, a dirge for Aethelwald, agreeing. No further words spoken between the two as the otter gazed into the fire and the songbird continued to sing sorrow. Back to back they waited as night came slowly to the sky. At the first sound beyond the hall, the otter's hand flew to his staff, and the sparrow quieted his song. The weak doors burst open, and in rushed a tumult. Beleaguered farmers forced in by the rough hands of the crows, cawing and calling at their weeping, enjoying good sport. The captains moved to a corner away from the abuse. The press of bodies turned the small hall to a pen. They were moved far from the fire, not permitted to sit at the mead benches, but in the dirt. Then their captors, with guard on the door, sat about the benches and began their revelry. Noreen was not yet in their number. At the sight of the misery, the sparrow left his corner and forced his way onto a table, and from there he shamed them. Cease this humiliation, you who were once men. Look upon the faces of those which you have brought here. Can you not see that there is hate etched on every face, hate born of fear? Lo, are you that would see that upon a child, animals who would place such terror into their hearts? You have been told the warriors are to have their seat at the mead bench, to drink first and eat first of all things laid out before you. But look upon those starved women who now wait standing while you mighty sit and feast. Your shield wall will break for being made of such cowards. They who are your guests have the unbreakable right to sit by the fire and take their fill while you wait on them. To do otherwise is beastly. You have taken these into your home and given them a most sacred right to protection in the laws of all men. A harmed man in your home is proof that you are a bad host. Shame is yours for this action. You have humiliated your very home. It will weigh upon you till you're dying. The warriors on the mead benches were dismayed for his sharp reproach, for he had only given gentle guidance to them before. They looked upon their fellows and found that which they hated in themselves. Many of their hearts resolved to surrender his seat to another, as the sparrow left his place and returned enraged to the side of the otter, in their shame recalling their works done beneath the fire of Arel Salam. Yet when the bravest of them prepared himself to stand, the doors opened for Noreen and his guest in travelling clothes. Ceallach followed after. They who had been cowed by the fiery bird burst to a cheer at the sight of their captain, the hard condemnation worse to bear than the harsh joy of Noreen. The feast grew in its derangement as the three took their places at the head of the host. Their cheers verged on madness as they strived to forget their meanness. So joyful were they to see the chief of their sin. The otter held fast to the sparrow, whose rage was doubled when men rejected compassion, and he flew into a fit of passion, weeping, though well concealed in the dark corner of the hall by his friend. As he held tightly his old friend, The otter also looked about the hall, fearing lest the rebuke be remembered and revenge sought by the drunk mead drinkers. As he gazed, he marked the passion of Noreen for his guest, wild lust in his eyes, the same gaze which Ceallach held for him. And as the traveller took his seat, he removed his long cloak and hood. The dark shape of the hunter was revealed. He took his place at Noreen's seat, while the covetous man sat beside him. The time in safety was ended. Noreen stood with mead in hand and spoke to his men in an elaborate toast, commanding their silence with but a glance. Brothers mine, for 2 years we have battled. Brave have you been in guard of your home and people. Fortune has loved us, for few of us are buried, though we fought great wars often. Now our fortune shall grow all the better, for we are joined by my friend of years past, a warrior in skill more fierce than all the Iolish, the last of Helm Hylas and leader of that host of Tella, the hunter of legends, king of all good warriors of ages past. Feast him tonight, bring honor to yourselves, for this is a just thing. When feasting is over, I shall proclaim from my seat beside him wondrous tidings. First, however, we drink and eat. Singer, a song. Yet the otter came not from his hiding, enraged still, yet also afraid lest the hunter recall him from their battle in the waters of Otterford, and his fame serving the hawk king of Uncultabar. He calmed his rage that it showed not on his features, as it swirled as a tempest in his heart. When he came not, the dog Ceallach went searching for him, leering and whipping those who he came across, and when he found the sparrow he seized him roughly, leading him to the fire. Not a word of protest did the sparrow speak. He sat beside the fire, huddled that the hunter might not see his face, and the crows were ashamed seeing his rough treatment and remembered his rebuke, thinking that he hid his face from them for their shame. He began to sing, but it was no song of men, for he found deep within himself a song which he had not known before, yet seemed as natural to his life as the sun in the sky or wind through the leaves, feeling given power he had not felt before, but which he knew came from the child on the mound and the baith beyond. So he sung the song of sleep, words which belong to the baith language, calm and steady, though he had not known them before. About him the people were enchanted by the sweetness, confused by his strange sounds, but unable to turn away, and those brought there as hostages found themselves eased of their worries. It was a cool river, the shade of summer, ever changing in its pleasant comforts, but never harsh. Ceallach lulled his tongue, and Noreen found his ease better than all other songs sung to him. But the hunter felt himself attacked, hearing the souls trapped in his body screaming in pain, his mother dying for his birth, and the cries of his father. The burning beams of Hala he heard. The torture pounded his ears as they reminded him that they were held ever in his bondage, and he hated them. He rose swiftly to end the song and revenge himself upon the singer for bringing their voices to him. As he drew his sword, he remembered the voice of the sparrow. Seeing the singer for who he was, he knew that his prize must be near. The otter saw his rising and ran to give battle, though the hunter had defeated him before, though his foes filled the hall, though he stood not in water. Their action stirred the men about them in the edges of their minds, drawing them from waking dream into the living world. Yet as they did, the sparrow finished his song where he knew it ended. On the last reverberating word, all listeners fell down in deep slumber. Alone the sparrow stood. He dragged the slumbering otter from the hall and roused him in the fresh air. Together they ran to the cave where Ceallach and Aethelwald were, and they fled there before the moon finished her climb. In the morning light, those who remained under the spell of the singer woke, and the hunter raged at his waking, for once again had his quarry escaped his grasp, and his violence cowed even Ceallach. He began with the hostages, and Noreen wept confused tears, half in the joy of blood and half in horror. The crows woke to slaughter, the words of the sparrow before them. The first to stand was named Machled. He had been close to the strange singer, and he rushed the hunter with naught but his shield. This was no challenge to the dark warrior, and his life was rent from his body. Those crows who held the sparrow dear rushed the hunter, while those who feared more than they could love fled with Noreen and Ceallach, and among the trees which circled the hall they listened to the battle. The cries of their fellows and those who they had ruled came in anguish to them through the morning air, and they wept for their cowardice and were men no longer. As sound of death grew faint, they saw dark light spill from their hall, and felt the earth shake under the weight of some great beast. And when the hunter stepped forth from the darkness, they saw a demon bathed in blood smiling at them, glad for their company. He took the band into the mountains in search of his desire. By nightfall they found the cave of the captains, and the hunter was joyed, for he could feel the path of their flight. The cursed band followed the trail. Far away, the child woke in pain, the dark power used upon the isle as wounds on her soul. Whimpering in this pain on her bed of spring flowers, she called out to her great mother, "I feel cold pain. On this land some dark power has devoured. It wounds me so. Dark beasts creep into my mind. I am afraid. Great Mother, please. I feel their pain but cannot stop it. Please, end it. I beg as your only child. Please." And the Baith witch was before her, proud and stern. She gathered the child in her arms and spoke to her. "Child, we weep at the wound also. Words weaved, wake and anguish and anger are all which answer for its deeds. The damned one does not sleep. Do you fear it, when fate has found her fix for it? You shall slay it, to save the people sat beneath you. That which was once your fathers writhes in pain. Pain you are to end, else endless will their enemies walk this land. Mortal man may not gain this victory. If you wish to vanquish the vileness, then farther must you be taught. Follow me from this place. Placed in your blood is the true power. Only by it is there victory." Ilulian nodded and went with the Baith again beneath the mound of her father. End. Book 4. The Ring of Dain Thar Duin was written and performed by Michael Frutig. If you have enjoyed this episode, please consider supporting the project on Patreon. Supporters get text files of each chapter, as well as access to Q&A posts, other writing projects, such as flash fiction and chapters of other works. Go to patreon.com/michaelfrutig for more. patreon.com/MICHAELFRUTIG. Thank you.